Is it too low? Oh, it's not working at all. Okay. Hello. No. Hello. Yeah, yeah. I'm the only deaf. Oh my God, that's my biggest fear in life. Oh, it's what? Oh, ah. All right. Oh my God. Yeah. Eric, the cable guy, is on the case. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right. Is that working? Is that better? Oh man. All right. Wow. Can even hear myself. All right. All right. I want to thank everyone for coming this evening, for being patient, because I think it's going to be well worth the wait. I have no doubt of that. Uh, the first of our two poets tonight is going to be Ashia Ajani, and I'm really delighted that she's here with us tonight. Among her recent accomplishments is her, I think, her first collection on heirloom, which is beautiful. Like, the little blurb, I'm not sure if it came from you or what source it came from, but mentioning it's in the tradition of the W.E.B. Du Bois's sense of sorrow songs. And um, I love this thing, speaking from a place of restoration and vengeance, because I think that's a very nice. Those are two polarities, but they're not polarities. You know, they one goes with another. So that's a very apt way to express what the dynamic tension between the cultural situation we're all in, trying to create a humane, nurturing environment in a sea of mad people run amok. So but and also Ashia has just been named the poet in residence at MOAD, the Museum of the African Diaspora, which is one of the main cultural institutions in the city. And it's really a wonderful accomplishment. And I know he's going to do a hell of a job in terms of, summoning the good energies and turning them into, mentoring the youth, whatever is involved. That seems really an exciting, really wonderful opportunity. So, do you have copies of Heirloom tonight, by the way? Oh, lovely. Oh, my goodness. So we'll figure out how to, yeah, just ask. We'll figure out how that's going to be done. I guess you can just handle it yourself if you wish, or you could do it through, whatever's works the best. Yeah, so the work explores the conjunction of blackness and ecological survival, also two things that are absolutely connected. And I love the phrase that Ashia is at the crossroads where jazz, birdsong, and rebellion replenish our souls. So, without further ado, Ashia Ajani.
Thank you all so much for having me. I'm gonna do my little book setup real quick. Yeah, this is really cool. I love to I don't know, read poetry, share some of my work, some of the weird way that my brain works with people. My name is Ashia. Outside of poetry, I am an environmental justice educator with an organization called Mycelium Youth Network, and currently standing in solidarity with OUSD teachers who are currently striking for better conditions. And I think it's just a really hard time to be an educator, to be an environmentalist, to be a Black person. It's always a hard time to be Black. So yeah, I'm going to read some poems just kind of like about that. And I want to start with, I don't know. I've been kind of feeling in a funk because yesterday a man was murdered on a New York subway. He was a Michael Jackson impersonator. He was homeless. He was hungry. And white vigilantism is such a huge problem in our country, and it kind of is oftentimes normalized. And I'm reminded of another incident of white vigilantism that killed a Black man who was running, who was just experiencing nature and experiencing freedom and all of the beautiful things that we should all be able to enjoy, but oftentimes can't. And so I thought that I would open with this poem. It's called Running, for Ahmaud Arbery. And yeah, just rest in power. Once again, I return to the outdoors in search of cleaner breath. My lungs, a peripatetic duo foraging for whatever fills, collapses, or relieves. In the South, breath is heavy. Humid palpitations mark this flesh ripe for taking. This exhalation is not cheap. The flight in these legs, a vestigial burden passed down generations of restlessness. We stay moving. It is harder to kill a thing in constant motion. I say no names for fear I will summon something wicked. I do not look at what hunts me. Rather, I embrace the freedom of exodus. When one of us runs, the rest follow. It is an unspoken bond of reluctant prey. You would think with everyone trapped in their houses, the predators would take a break. Even Jesus got one day of rest. 2 bullets hunt and run behind me. The asphalt loves this body too much for return. Whiteness rewrites my breath into blood, into ash. Self-deputized by whatever golden emanations they deem worthy of judgment, these violent beasts reclaim open space that was never theirs to covet. My feet shift with a sole desire to mind my business and keep it pushing. My heart, a wrestle in the wilderness, sought for horrific consumption. I do not want to be surveilled. I just want to feel the cool air wrapped around my Black body and for once, feel free to exhale. This next one I will read. So during the pandemic, I was smoking a lot of weed because what else was there to do during the pandemic? And funny enough, like my relationship with weed has changed a lot. I don't know. It gives me like the nightly scaries now. So I can't like really smoke as much as I normally do. But there was a moment where I was just like, wow, I'm just like the only person that I'm seeing during the pandemic is my weed man. And so I wrote a poem about that. I grease myself with lip gloss and lotion, and perhaps a little blush will conjure the color courage to go sit in this man's Honda for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. The weed man is the only man to ever see me with my scarf on. I dip and toe a green line. The intimacy of purchase lingers want on my lips. Yes, this too is heady. In the evening time, I upcycle heartbreak. Try on a new facade of sexy cool meant to bring back bliss. Eyes low, I coax memory to rewrite itself through a rap fatty and weighty conversations like, did you know so-and-so died? Ash fell from the sky when he didn't deserve. The doctor says rent is up another $175, so let me get a half ounce of anything that will pull my mind back from the brink of no return. Eager to oblige, Weed Man hands me a bag of indigo to evince a night sky from beyond my wildest emptiness. Both of us black and hustling, rife with dreams of soulmates evergreen. This be an elegiac alliance. Heartache notwithstanding, he beholds my blessings everlasting. Lovers come and go, but this is something sacred. I don't know where my paycheck ends and his begins, but I love the idea of being tethered to something. I am a shapeshifter eroded by grief. Render my tenement hollow. Let the fullness of me idle below an unseated frontier to conquer. I call myself a before, simply ungrounded. How I began, not like this. So my name is Ashia. It's spelled Ashia. I don't know what it is. It's like a lot of vowels or just the arrangement of letters. Something people always pronounce my name wrong. And so my name is it has a couple different like iterations, but the main one that I know is Ghanaian, and it means like life, like happiness, joy kind of situation. And learning more about like my name and how like in a lot of different being black, like and not like knowing your African ancestry is like a weird thing. And then I don't know, I was like, yeah, meeting a lot of like people of the African diaspora who were like, oh, did you know your name means this? Did your name means that? And I, because I'm a poet and I'm existential, I'm like, what does it mean? So I wrote a poem about that. It's called Nameless. At coffee shops, I take on a new baptism. I just want my cold brew. The jumbled pieces of genealogy settle into old dust, seeds knocked from my braids long, long ago. My ancestry choking on seawater, lost, phonetically abandoned. Softened cheekbones facing eastward, always. Anytime some variation of my name is uttered, a dead slave rises from behind my ear and pinches the skin red. At the border between Zambia and South Africa, fresh. Someone pronounces my name correctly for the very first time. All that is left in the space bounded by home and history is longing. The hyphen between African American, superimposed identity. I surrender a piece of my body every time I am asked to place root. Interesting enough to inquire. All the mistakes of the Atlantic reside on my face, nameless. I'm sorry. I don't have any clean answers for you. I think the blackest thing about me are my eyes. Bless how they were taught to keep moving, to seek truth, to always greet the dawn with devotion. All right, this next poem is probably my favorite poem in the collection. It's called Life Cycle. One of my friends, Irene Vasquez, who's also an amazing poet, I would highly recommend looking up their work. At my virtual launch party, they were like, one of the things that I really enjoy about Ashia's poetry is how they have the capacity to sound so beautifully angry all the time. And again, speaking from a place of restoration and vengeance, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think that, not to like romanticize our pain, but I do think that there's like a beauty in our rage and the way that we fight for each other, the way that we protect each other, the way that we care about each other. And it's something that I've learned from a long lineage of just angry people. This is kind of just recognizing a little bit why we're so angry. America is a factory. My father builds security cameras from discarded junk phones. Their cracked screens a subterranean stained glass burgeoning blessings. Come one, come all if you dare. He wields a fine line between surveillance and security. My father is no stranger to a gun. My father believes in a self-proclaimed rapture. The hills have eyes. My father's lenses thicken as his vision defers. At the end of the world, he hopes to patent his despair. America is a landfill. Underwater bloodline brined, it's soured. My neighbor pours the leftover liquid from a pot of greens into his garden. Billowing green stink arises, stains room for ripening. Black folks despise waste. The last drops of Crown Peach in the dog's water bowl for taste. The plastic bags under my auntie's kitchen cabinet, exceptional cushioning for our endangered shadows. Never afforded the softness of packing peanuts. Is the soul biodegradable? Can it be upcycled? At least we still have Granny's house. Wrap your apparitions in polyester coves, send them out to ocean. May they forever exist in sedimentary purgatory, floating on. In this sense, we never rest. In this sense, pollution profits. And won't these white folks come and pick up the damn trash? America is a false idol. All my people iconoclast. Look out the window at all that. Goddamn, what is he protecting? Ain't nothing here ours but scraps of metal melted all down, why don't you? Some homes are worth less than their copper pipes, this metallic stew pot boiling over. My ancestors bartered their gold teeth for green, earned heart disease and curdle cream dreams instead as the planet warms another degree. Mama says my degree won't save me. Suppose cash really does rule everything around me. I wonder, which rich bones can broth a new vanguard? America is a malignant tumor. Oh, how I long to capitalize this intrusion in our collective heart, beating away at the floorboards of good senses until the spirits rattle around, pushing daisies, memories stinging nettle unsilenced. Watch the good earth reclaim clunkers for cash. Nostalgia makes a mockery of present. The open-faced sores on my uncle's knuckles a tribute to this nation's success. I won't bullshit you. He reeks of burnt sienna and ember. It all reeks of pirated pyrite, fool's gold. I talk too much about my grandmother's hands because they threshed this country. Great migration granny built Ford tough. A gorgeous ghost gnarled into graphics. Look closely. You can see flakes of calluses soldered to your car's lithium battery. I talk too much about my grandmother's hands because they became cracked by bleach, ammonia, everything meant to whiten and purge bacteria. She passed down her genealogy of anguish, lead-hardened blood, black lung coughing up embattled blues. Wasn't the Tin Man once chopping through scorched earth too? My gut is filled with vengeful microorganisms. Today and every day beyond grief, I throw my grease against any surface in need of shine. America, define yourself a country exactly. My offering, a knotted bellyache of sadness born beyond a destined horizon, manifested. The embers of our lost selves tumbling across the west coast. Even the mountains seemed to collapse with sadness. The spine of the uninherited earth curved like that of a funeral wailer. An assembly line aggravating access. All that rust corroding our good sense. Riddle me this. How can I be well when my lawn is always burning? Okay. All right, so I live in the Bay Area now, and I have been kind of on and off for a couple years. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, and I don't know if anybody has been to Denver before, but Denver is a very fascinating place with a lot of contradictions, which pretty much describes, everywhere else. But Denver is particular in its contradictions, and that, I was doing a lot of research, and there was, actually this really big boom of Black folks that moved out to Denver in the 70s and 80s, again, same reason why a lot of people from the South to North were moving to the North, better jobs. There's this booming Black middle class. And then, of course, nobody likes that. And so they have increasingly been chipping away at it. And of course, it's poor Black people who are bearing the brunt of that. And so I wrote a little poem for Denver. The form is called a plosive, and it's a poem that starts with DB P or T, I believe. So plosive for Denver. And there's something that we say at the end of every slam in Denver, which is Queen City of the Plains, for in you we live and are loved. Denver, my devil dear, didn't you defeat yourself from jump? Didn't you define yourself from get? Dios me, damned by definition, deliciously divine, done tempted me to stay dry Dixieland. Darling Denver, didn't you debut dutifully? Deep durazno summertime skies, dandelion debauchery dominated by delight. Denver, you are a desperate decomposer. Didn't you warn me of my own deflowering? Diminishing daydreams, dour drought, a damaging city's deception persists. Dedicated OGs discerning your Domingo deliverance, doping your devotees due to deceitful decolonization, demented dualities dish daggers desired by development. Yet so dynamic and dreamy, delinquents dangle from your dreads, disastrous in your delectability. Denver, I dance with you at a distance. Displacers disturb deities, denote dents in your dirty, dim dusk. So drunk you are in your delusion, dog. Denver wears a dashiki to a jazz festival, decides herself dapper. Discordant chords demolish pipe dreams. Denver Dayflower, don't demarcate me dead weight. I wiped my shoes on your dank doormat. Your decay stuck to my digits, deracinated by damnable design. Dear Denver, don't disregard my diatribes. It's my duty to disparage your disappearing decision. Your dispossessed have come to collect their debt. All right. All right. should I do? All right. I think I'm gonna do two more. I'm gonna do an old one, not an old one that's in the book. This book has been like 7 years in the making, y'all. I'm gonna do one from the book, and then I'm gonna do a new one. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our second feature. Ajani is like really freaking cool. And so thank you so much for having me. I have books available, and I can't wait to get into this open mic. So this one is called Obad for Rosemary Eggs. In a shared kitchen, you made me rosemary eggs, following a sun salutation of hungry lovemaking. I watched the golden yolks pop under your gentle pressure, center overflowing into margins, eager to fill the blackened barrier of a cast iron pan with undeniable yellowness. I wanted to burst like that, give way to my most sumptuous flavor. Persuaded by good heat, your thumb's firm kindness releasing the dawn. For you, I would be desperate, yoked, runny. Darling with California eyes like wildfire, take me over. Burn my biomass to ash, fuel a stove to make eggs. Forever rosemary. Open, you say, lifting a fork to my sunrise-stained lips. And just like that, all morning glory of me unfolds. All right, since I am in a lovey-dovey mood, I thought that I would close with one more love poem. Okay, so it got a facelift. So its face is like, like a few months new. And I'm excited to share. I love doing this one, and I'm excited kind of like of where it goes. So let me find it. All right. Okay, there we go. A dialect unknown to my ears, but locked away in my soul, makes itself known every time your lips brush against my skin. There is you, and there is peace. There is something about brown eyes that makes them unforgettable. Something about brown skin that makes you think of home and all the treasures you have lost, and the ones that must and should and will be reclaimed. In this bed, we speak idioms of Nahuatl and Oshun, our hearts unbridled by the burden of language, making space for our tongues to engage in more urgent matters. The only sounds that can emerge cannot be uttered in good company. My body gasping, I need you to love me a little louder. I need you to love me with your hands. I need you to love the parts this narrow white world cannot make room to comprehend. Our stories are caught between missionary church, containing the wildness of our spirits. Beat the native savages to cleanse the pure soul trapped under all of that primitive lust. Our own internalized shame creeping from the belly of forgotten history. We are but products of our environments, but here we are witnesses to our own abstraction. What pieces of art can be made from the entanglement of limbs? Let me show you how these hips move like watercolor, how my teeth shine like marble under a derobed sky, the eyes soften like fertile soil. A part of me has walked this land before and has known its ridges and flaws without pause or remorse. Those who wish to murder the past ask that we wear our shadows lightly. But the hell that rattles in our vocal cords demands attention, demands that we return home to the flesh, coaxing our souls into soft bloom. Tell me, what is more beautiful than a black body in the aftershock of a climax? The earth's motion ruptures every time you dare utter your pleasure. Marvel at how it spills from your throat like sugar cane. Baby, our colonial pasts comfort each other, our trickle-down legacies. Our ancestral sorrow runs through our veins like sludge. All we know is take, but here we are, you and I, folding back into the joy our forebears knew unapologetically. And doesn't it feel good to be loved like this? Before rejecting beauty, before despising the body, before the binaries told us we couldn't exist, in needing the foals, in celebration of my nappy hair and your tall brown body. Every time our honeyed middles intertwine, it is a big middle finger to the powers that want us to pretend we know nothing of the magic that lingers in our flesh. Every time our lips touch, it is a song, calling back to homelands buried beneath the industrial concrete. And can't you hear the foundation shake? We, sites of both promise and ruin. Can't you hear Atabe weep tears of yucca and joy at our most glorious creation? Thank you for having me. I have books available for sale.
Ashia, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Woo. Well, much was promised and much was delivered. I'll say that. Wow. Has Jamani come? Has she made it? Is Jamani? Oh, lovely. I'm so thrilled, Jamani, with a very fashionably late entrance. Very nice. Jamani is an Oakland native who, from the earliest days, was a percussionist and dancer, which is always a good sign, and she still is a percussionist and dancer. And she's an English student at Northeastern, Mills, yes, thank you. Northeastern at Mills. I guess the two schools are together at this point, and she's been involved in a lot of explorations of poetry as a cultural assertion and as personal therapy, and some of her colleagues have joined her in something called a racial trauma initiative called the Black Wellness Package, which sounds, I hope she'll say a few words about what that entails. And we're very delighted to welcome Jamani to the stage now.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Jamani. Thank you all for having me. I am incredibly fashionably late. You were so right. Yes, it's kind of debatable, but I'm getting towards graduation at Mills. As an English major, as a creative writing major, I've been kind of pursuing this journey for 3 or 4 years now. I did grow up dancing, and so for the majority of my life, I thought I was going to be a dancer until I switched my whole life around. Not my whole life, but this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I did work on something called the Black Wellness Package at Mills during 2020. Me and 3 other students, we got together and we decided that Black students needed extra support in higher education while trying to balance mental health, academics, ongoing trauma. So, everything with the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd, et cetera, during that time. So we proposed that the school recognize racial trauma as something that could be as a, not a disorder, but something that we could use that could be honored with accommodation for the same reasons that we honor post-traumatic stress. And so we worked hard coming up with the psychological and counseling services, accommodations that we could put forward for students who are Black who need extra support during such a time. We were able to accomplish something called letters of consideration, as well as recognition for the Black Wellness Package and its desires in students' syllabus or syllabi. So teachers would recognize a Black Wellness Package and say, if this is something you would like to look towards, please come speak with me. We can help support you extra during this semester without divulging a lot of personal information and things of that nature. So that was a lot of fun, incredibly important. And I think it was a really interesting way to put together 2 parts of my life, which is someone who lives with ADHD, bipolar disorder, complex PTSD, as well as being in higher ed and Black. So today I'd like to start with something new, and then I'll move to my book. I put out a book most recently with Nomadic Press. Yes, I'm so sad to see them go, but it was really special to be a part of the final cohort. My book is called Power of Our Wombs. And again, thank you for inviting me to this. So I'll get started with something new. It starts young. Don't shit where you eat. No elbows on the table. Holster that knife on the right. Keep the blade pointed in. The knife must have a +1, and that +1 is a soup spoon. Fork lingers on the left. A lone wolf. It starts young. Eyes on the floor. No high chins. No exposed hymns. Speak when spoken to. Only ma'ams and sirs. No wrinkled suits. No girdles loose. It starts young. No loud mouthing. No gum smacking. Don't mention what your mama did. You're paying for what your father did. Clean your nails so you don't leave plantation dirt in the linings of your purse. It starts young. No whistling like sailors. No whistling like sailors near women. Don't be near women. No cleavage. No cleavage while consorting with men. Don't consort with men. No public displays of joy. No public displays of defeat. No public displays of pain. No public displays, period. No public for you. No singing. No singing on shores. No shores. You can smoke cigs at the dock, though no voyages home. But you can watch the tides of justice roll out each and every night. And the rights to visibility exist under color theory. It starts even younger. You come curious. You come as clay. You come as amoeba. You must strip search, mouth open, dodging trick questions like Angel's Island, freed via stretcher, naked. To excel, your mother sends you to the enemy. To learn, to study exsanguination. They'll come up with a lie, claim you alien, so they can hang you upside down, put a pot under your head. You're a refugee. They host you. You end up in a sick game of tit for tat. They gain, you don't. You come home anemic, no platelets. It starts young. You go to school excited to excel. They peg you as too happy to be black. Can't find the attitude, citing not enough visible signs of war about you. So you return with scars from sharpeners in your pencil box. You don't know if you love it when you're pushed to your knees or just rather strike yourself than retaliate in a 3 strikes minded country. It starts young. To stay in the enemy's school, don't shit where they eat. Shh, no ululations in their libraries. Don't duck when they pet you. Shorts are for girls, you're grown. It starts young. Eyes on the floor, no high chins, no training bras, no bandos with spaghetti straps. For you, your bodies require wire. Go home and stay there. No bass notes when you speak. Your words send us running for cover. Speak when spoken to. It has to start young. To attend here, you must sign a prenup, an agreement about mutually assured destruction. It starts young. Resource officers drag you out of class to put you in handcuffs. Charges, you look better in metal. Thank you. So before I transition to my book, I started writing, exploring what me and my teacher consider to be the disguised I. I started studying, reading through Claudia Rankine's work, Citizen, as well as my close professor and friend, Trong Tran, wrote Book of the Other. And so I was taking a lot of inspiration from that. So that is a new style that I'm trying with myself. And thank y'all for listening. So today I'm going to start with a poem called We're Still Here. I'm sitting in the marina looking at a beautiful blue-light Pacific Bay. I'm reading on my phone that scientists are saying the 6th mass extinction has already begun. They say they're seeing around the globe scattered remains of too many dead animals, and the coral reefs are past the brink, and they're measuring how our water sources have become undrinkable and uninhabitable. And that freeze in Texas, the quake and the volcanic eruptions in the South Pacific are evidence of multi-system organ shutdown. They tally the numbers of poor people being swept out to sea in the South. Places like the 9th Ward, Louisiana, where folks like my black woman friend T were born and raised, where they survive yearly hurricanes and wet heat and bugs and flooding and mass extinction events like Katrina, where folks like T have grown up with the 6th and 7th sense for endings. Our coastal livers learn a language of for water, born out of loving and hating, a life living and laboring on and by and of the sea, because every year the Gulf swallows their homes, and every year when nature's wrath and government neglect come together, roll in, people battle, bargain, pray to the ocean, but end up on rooftops, calling out for rescue, waving their hands frantic to and fro, hoping and waiting for mercy. Some just let the waves take them, and then they let go. They say that we need to talk about deforestation and industrialization, animal abuse, even as the rich unearth ancient bacteria and build slaughterhouses for profit, affecting ecosystems, causing mass casualties. I know we'll find a way, but fast enough? As I heal my intuition, my womb knows when another womb is in distress. I'm talking about the womb we all come from and return to. And whether or not your womb can produce, I'm talking about that ancient reproductive woman instinct that ignites your intuition, a knowing. And many have this. But I know that there are those that have lost this trait, those that many years ago betrayed themselves and have sailed seas, stalked shores, and shot themselves into space, the ones that are headed everywhere except back to source. The ones that haven't been noble or defined or dignified or divine for eons, they have slaughter on their hands, they birth and nurture evil. And earth is crumbling beneath us every day. I just barely get my breath back. I rise, waned like the moon, my feet numb and blue, but Black and indigenous folks know the extinction began 400 and too much change years ago. Settler colonialism, white religion, racial capitalism, when the mythology of supreme being was conceived, when they gave native folks diseases on blankets and threw my Black people to the bottom of the sea, earth is throwing us back up. Jasmine is an indigenous woman to the land in which America has been killing ethnic and cultural roots in Mexico and California. Jazz has flat feet. She says she can't stand, to which I offer there a full-footed connection to the ground beneath us. It's where her sixth and seventh senses are planted, where her intuition pulses and emits from. She often dances because she can't stop moving, because she can't be still. The stillness can be a certain kind of death. This kind of pain is an energy source of its own, but so is knowing earth through your feet. She's a child of agriculture and agricultural workers, harvests and harvesters. She has a knowing within of earth, which we could only imagine. She says our generation is a generation born at the end. Is she right? I wish not to accept that. Can there be a choice not to return to the darkness by way of endless battle? This reckoning, it's not a seed I've sown. It is a repercussion our people have been fighting to rectify. And it's for them, the rich and the white, for whom I've spent my best years trying to apologize for into the ears of Mama Earth. And so billionaires blow fibs on Fox News about climate change being a hoax, crap in a crock pot. But these billionaires also boast about ballooning themselves millions and billions of miles into the cosmos to boundless space and to build borders out yonder, chuckling, cocking back space beers as they look out at the beginnings of the new space race to create colonial space, colonizing the blackest blackness. And they don't bother glancing back at us in the rearview mirrors while we stuck here on a sphere whose spin is speeding right towards blowout, ozone thinning, so we here boil to bits, leaving us blacks and browns and poor in this bed they've made up, a bed filled with centuries of betrayal. I know we'll find a way, but fast enough? So my book is separated into two portions. Womb wounds and womanhood. So in the section Womb Wounds, I have a poem called Stephanie. Actually, switch, wrong poem. Hold on. Once again. Okay, this poem is trying not to be found. Love it. Here we go. Okay. This poem is actually called Stack of Papers. I'm gonna start. Juju the doula hosted me and some other Black women in her Heal the Womb virtual poetry class because we're 2 years and some change into a world pandemic. It was 6 p.m. on a Friday night, and there were several of us from the Bay Area, because Juju the doula is from Oakland. And we were tuned in on time as she asked of us. Some even matriculated in as far out as Georgia and Kentucky and Virginia. We started with a womb word dump. Then she posed us 2 questions. What are your wombs like? And if it was an object, what would it be? To which I say, a stack of papers. My womb is a stack of papers. From the state, I only know myself in the words I've read on these pages, printed and published from 2003, when the social worker ceased visits. Last report saying I'd hit the basics. She no longer needed to think of me, to as early as 1998, my birth year. Like how one is conditioned to learn oneself early on in report cards based on prison records, the things white people say or were saying about you. My understanding literally jumped up and walked right off the page. I envy people who can raise their hands in class because their hands deserve to be up. I worry if I don't speak, I look like I don't deserve a seat. Pat themselves on the back and feel surrounded. Seems like the things my hands are best at is gripping my hip bones, kneading nape spine, and then diagnosing my womb pain as having traveled from my pelvis to my lower back, leaving a permanent ache. People been telling me, long as I could remember, I got the arch of a young mom, like I've been carrying myself since birth. Once we tested positive and they called my mother unfit, sent me on my lonesome way, away from source, from mother, from womb mama in mama's womb, from her bosoms, from her inner elbow where my head meant to lay, from her birth name, from my birth name. I'm always searching for my other homes, always thinking I'm missing someone. Every so often I crack my papers open to jog my memory, to hear my mother's voice, to recognize the sound of my cries, my loneliness, recognize my mother's eyes peeking back at me from between the lines. I wonder if I apologize for her indiscretions, will they reveal the rest of myself to me? But I also curse her father for breaking lines. His touch sent her to the streets, late teen, trying to snatch her knowing back, bending her spine, pushing her hips out and back, hoping sex by way of the block might ground her into a happy home. And I must also curse the state for pretending like they didn't know crack was her way of holding on. Resilience, a gamble, to which card she pulls first, freedom or death. In Black Girl Call Home, Jasmine Mann wrote, mortality and magic occupy the same space. She pulled death. And sometimes I wish we hadn't cremated my mother so I could visit her in the yard so we could have our own conversations by cloak of privacy. But she's amongst her scorned memories, regrets, mistakes in my sister's home at the behest of all those ears. They admit they feel mostly judgment for her, understandably so. And my womb has a moderately thick file of papers on her from clinics. Tested positive for cocaine. Tested twice, 6 months apart. HIV, morbid cramps, collapsed in shower, low blood pressure, needs birth control, never used, too scared. An even thicker file, post-assault. Police arrive, leave, offering nothing. After another assault, needs pregnancy test, needs UTI test, sleeping pills. My womb, with every interaction and non-interaction, becomes more of a mystery to me. I guess she's love. I've discovered her to be potent power. She got wet at fear hour to ease the pain, and I'm grateful. The most feminine part of me must have some hair. The masculine in me wants to keep it long. And if my body could rise up and out like dough to make space for all this trauma, then I believe my womb and my girl will in fact one day be able to stretch wide again, welcome love, and endure the trauma of birth, a beauty that will not be denied. This is a story that matters. Thank you. Time? We're doing okay? I am going to read it's one of my favorite poems. Took inspiration from another poet, and this poem is called Medusa. I'm sitting here in a car atop the city, aloof, alone, gaze a little bit unhealthy. I don't throw my head into walls anymore, bring scars to the tub. I stare her down, definitely high from her halo, mostly wishing she'd make me blind, ignorant, if if she were capable, if that were possible for me. But I'm the seer, I'm an observer, I'm born to know too much. We're tied by our tresses, our reach for each other. We're simplified to our purpose, see and be seen. I watch you undress, robe dropping before me. You dance for us, your sunflower seed yellows and southern sweet potato oranges and romantic reds and scalding blues, and leave us drooling, stoned. Then you leave us here with the memory of you for 8 minutes after you've gone. The way your light lingers on gutted brass kingdoms, I live to do as you do. And when they ask where I got all this warmth, I think to say, so I send them off with, you gave it to me. Every lifetime I've had the same eyes, so you wore my skin brass and my coils zinc and give me a slice of your omniscience. I make sure to sing out as a line for your warmth wraps around the globe. The power of women, the power of women, the power of women, the power of women. Thank you. Okay, I am going to actually read Stephanie. Okay. This is what I mean when I say womb wounds. Ricky screamed, hit, kicked, bit, positioned her demons between us, them, and her on what felt like every single interaction. I don't think she ever spoke any decipherable tongue. Not even Tom's the choo-choo train could do it, could get her little arms chugging and her chanting, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. I know it. I don't remember her by her words. She had none. I remember I spent most of the time pressed against walls. When Ricky was placed with us, our mom really began talking fast and hard. Her lungs ceased knowing oxygen, stopped knowing in and out, frantically trying to settle her calm, hoping that, no, stop that, and use your words, would somehow tuck her into us. Mom needed me to be the model child to convince Ricky that she'd be happier if she stopped resisting our love. I remember when the moon was awake and watching us, running my hand along the apartment walls on my way to the kitchen in search of Ricky under the table, the only place she seemed accustomed to sleeping, the only place where she knew herself, a loneliness born out of the home she'd lost before us. I traced my hands along. I could feel ridge-like depressions in those walls from my shoulders, blades hugging on for stability, craters in those walls from the back of my head, rusted paint from sweat stains. You convinced us that love wasn't an intrusion. You couldn't convince us that love wasn't an intrusion. Those were confusing nights. We gave the night muscle memory of what our undoing felt like. After a while, it was clear we could not care for her. We sent her back with her pink jacket, backpack, and white sneaks, the only loyal belongings she'd ever had. We moved soon after. We needed a place that hadn't pocketed her silence so loudly, that wasn't throwing it all up back in our faces, scratching us. Pardon not knowing Chinese, but I believe the experience distorted the feng shui in our apartment. A year and a half later, I was 9 and in a daycare down the street from my school when Stephanie arrived. I tell you, everyone groaned. Pardon me for tapping into racist stereotypes, but she didn't just speak white, she spoke Valley Girl white. She was 7 years old and had type 1 diabetes, so we all had to learn it. But it was me they pulled aside, told me I was of the oldest. I had been appointed her watcher. I was to check her numbers, learn how to do the prick, even where to inject her insulin. And when I'm scared, I leave my body, so my memory becomes spotty and selective. I realize now that I'll always feel haunted by Ricky until I can forgive myself for things I'm not actually guilty of. And so every couple of years I encounter another Ricky, and Stephanie was my first Ricky after Ricky. Stephanie wasn't well liked. If you liked her, you called her Steph, but she and everyone else wanted me to call her Play Daughter. And if you didn't like her, you called her by her full government name, or Crybaby for short. She was always wailing and whining. Apparently, I was the only one with the magic to quiet her. Likely her intuition could sense that I'd had much exposure to people with chronic pain. I would be able to put her before me. The women pep talked me into finding a sense of duty, due diligence, obligation. I hated that responsibility. I wanted a choice. Then one day she passed out in the pantry. I remember slowly backing out of the entrance, pressing myself against the wall, leaving ridges and craters and sweat stains. The women ran to her. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. Stephanie, Stephanie, Stephanie. Girl, you're okay. Just open your eyes. Stephanie, come on, love. You're okay. Just open your eyes. On and on, they tried to tussle her awake, pat her cheeks. How about a wet cloth over her head, forehead, and nape of the neck? Drape her in a blanket and turn off the lights. Now call an ambulance. Jessica, what happened? I don't know. I don't know. While we waited, they checked her numbers and tried chest compressions to get her breathing. But I tell you, none of us were breathing. We were all waiting to exhale. EMTs arrived on scene, more compressions and tube down the throat for resuscitation. She survived, barely. From there on, I was always afraid she would die on my watch, a friendship stuck in the future, in grief. A few days after she came home, those women with the audacity to put her breath in my hands pulled me aside and went over the rules and signs again, finding within me a stronger sense of obligation, as if that was a problem. I tell you this, I never called her play daughter again. Thank y'all for listening.
Yeah, phenomenal first half of the evening. So we're going to take like probably 5 to 7 minute break. Then I think there's a pretty full schedule of the open mic poets, and Jerry Faraz will be presiding over that. Jerry, who I met in 1972 when I first came to town. I said, I better meet Jerry first thing. From then I can figure out the rest later. But so yeah, so we'll take a very short break and then we'll get into the open mic session. And again, thanks so much to our 2 readers tonight. Very inspiring and very important.
Last night I was at the tribute to Ruth Watts at the Luggage Store. It's this weird place at 6th and Mission.
That's what I thought. Jessica was saying, no, it's on Market. And I said, no, it's on Mission.
Well, she was there. She and I each had 10 minutes to live. Tonight she's at the SF Jazz. She knows somebody that works for them. She did real well.
Okie dokie. So, okay, we've got like 13, maybe 14 poets. So you know how it goes, you know, the first 3 poets are allowed to take up all the time.
Sorry, number 4, Costco.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll be calling out the names, and first we have Paul Slade.
Yeah, thank you, Eric and Michael and Jerry. This poem is going to be about Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris that had that serious fire. I was just thinking when I was in Catholic grammar school here in San Francisco, I went to a school called St. Emilius. And St. Emilius is a patron saint to pray to in time of natural disasters. And it was a big earthquake in 1957. And we're all say we're so lucky we didn't get hit by any of the statues that were there to protect us. This is called Magnificat. Am I? All right. Whoa. Yeah.
Oh, don't get too creative now.
Our Lady, our Dame of the Divine, Notre Dame in Paris. Risen in opulence, the Mount Everest temptation, erected by the riches of regents, holy men, and the piety of peasants. The cathedral emerged from the morass of temporal civilization as an homage to God, constructed from the elements of terra firma in a bold rejection of gravity, striving for the ephemeral. From the ramparts, the pre-Galileo light would shine through the glass stained by the good and evil deeds of the faithful, illuminating them in redemption. The prayers of the humbled would echo in the alcoves in Roman liturgy. Popes replaced emperors, chants, madrigals, Gloria in excelsis Deo. Then, in modern times, the divine, from the throne in the azure of the cosmos, responded to the pleas of the supplicants, and with the mouths of the gargoyles agape, blitzing the cathedral, blazing it in worldly hellfire. Sins exploded in a cataclysm in a fiendish measure of conflagration. Then, in the aftermath, the Gothic skeleton remained, sinews of souls exposed, smoldering with the aroma of frankincense, spires, fragile, stood in shock, hallowed ghost of grace, purgatory's victims. Prayers were mumbled, Hail Marys from a rosary of hubris, with lachrymose entreaties. Was the fire sparked from an incendiary malfunction of mankind, or from an ember in Dante's Inferno? Our Lady will be resurrected by the victims to give back to God his or her antiquity, with blessed technology and new filaments for an old vernacular with zeros and ones. There will be those whose spirits are not always daunted by imprimaturs, who will pray in ironic irony that some of the brick and mortar will be saved to build a sanctuary with the view of the horizon, honoring Quasimodo. Thank you.
Okay, Jorge Argueta.
I'm gonna. Can I take from you?
We can't see you.
You can see me? I don't want to climb here because I have my back hurts a little bit, Gina. But I'm gonna read a poem. It's called Los Superhéroes. I'm gonna read the Spanish version in my very beautiful friend and amazing translator is gonna read that version in English. Los superhéroes. Hoy vi a Superman tirado en la calle. La capa que les sirve para volar estaba rota y vomitada. Le había crecido la barba. Tenía las botas rojas y el pelo alborotado. Lo reconocí por la camiseta. Ahí decía claramente Superman. Superman está jodido. Ha perdido sus poderes y hasta sus dientes. Agarró el crack y ahora no tiene casa. No tiene amigos. No tiene nada ni a nadie. Ni país que lo quiera. Los demás superhéroes también están todos igual de jodidos. La Mujer Maravilla ya no hace maravillas, apenas puede caminar arrastrando sus tristezas, apenas puede empujar su carrito donde amontona bolsas y ropa vieja. La Mujer Maravilla es la más triste de todas las mujeres, es una Virgen María que va rezando y llorando. Batman y Robin entran a robar a los centros comerciales. Roban y venden lo que roban para comprar su droga. Batman y Robin andan perdidos por las calles, no manejan, no hablan, caminan como zombies por las calles, son muertos en vida. El hombre araña no trepa edificios, se arrastra por las calles, vive en las cunetas, vive doblado, escondido debajo de una sábana, se inyecta heroína y fuma crack. El hombre araña se ha quedado sin poderes, se le ve solo por las calles, se le ve llorando, quejándose, hablando solo. El Capitán América empeñó su escudo de justiciero para comprar fentanil. Cansado, quiso rentar una noche en un hotel, lo encontraron apuñalado en la calle 16. ¡Ay! 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 Claman los lamentos de los superhéroes y de los héroes y heroínas de toda América, la América del Norte, donde acaba de pasar el invierno y aún hay en las nubes gotitas de lluvia que de vez en cuando lloran como cuando llora el invierno.
These are hot off the press. He wrote that yesterday, and I translated it today. Superheroes. Today I saw Superman sprawled on the street, his cape torn, streaked with vomit, stubble of a beard, holes in his boots, disheveled hair. I recognized him by his T-shirt. It clearly said Superman. Superman is fucked. He's lost his powers, even his teeth. He's into crack. He's got no home. He's got no friends. He's got nothing, nobody, no country that wants him. The other superheroes are just as fucked up. Wonder Woman can't make wonders anymore. She can barely walk, dragging her heartaches. She can barely push her little cart, piled up with bags and old clothes. Wonder Woman is the saddest woman of all, a weeping Virgin Mary on the street. Batman and Robin steal from shopping centers. They rob them and sell what they rob to buy drugs. Batman and Robin wander the streets lost. Can't keep it together, can't talk. They walk like zombies. They're the living dead. Spider-Man doesn't scale buildings now. He crawls through the streets. He lives in the gutter, crouched over underneath a sheet, injecting heroin and smoking crack. Spider-Man has lost his powers. You see him alone on the sidewalk, crying, moaning, talking to himself. Captain America has pawned his shield of justice to buy fentanyl. He was tired. He wanted to spend a night in a motel. They found him stabbed on 16th Street. I ring the laments of the superheroes, all the heroes and heroines all over America, and little droplets of rain in the clouds sometimes weep the way winter weeps.
Thank you. Duncan Dobson? Duncan Dobson, is it, or Bobson? Dobson. Duncan Dobson.
Hello. If anyone's interested, I have about 3 books and a zine to sell. This one is my own poetry. The other ones are by other people. But I'll just read a couple out of this one. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. This one's called A Bit of the Old Abdur Rahim. You are an apostrophe that fills in a space for me. You are a shorthand for what I don't understand. You are an overflow of what I want to know. You are geometry. You are hyperbole. You are my morning fix of DJ mix, music in line with a greater design. You aren't a ploy to destroy. You're not coy. You're selling me on what I can't see. You're telling me what is meant to be. Few men can stay on the straight, narrow way. We tend to stray. This one was a form of poetry that was suggested to me, and it's called a pantun. I think it's Malaysian in origin. This one's called Pantunic Regularity. A diamond in a cup, a man in full repose, tinfoil crumpled up, I washed him with a hose. A man in full repose, his pulse was very slight. I washed him with a hose, beneath fluorescent light. His pulse was very slight. His skin was almost blue, beneath fluorescent light, an iridescent hue. His skin was almost blue. Time will shortly stop, an iridescent hue. One piece left to drop. Time will shortly stop, tinfoil crumpled up. One piece left to drop, a diamond in a cup. Just going to do, this is 2 actually, 2 sonnets. Sonnet A. The curtain ran down his side. His head was tilted back. His harmless look belied. He started to attack. He stabbed me in the heart, and I began to die. It was another start, and I began to try to open up my ears to what he had to say and what we have to fear from those who are astray. 1 + 1 = 3. Makes sense to me. And then Sonnet B. Number is a quality of a set, describing how many a set contains. I haven't quite gotten it yet, but I don't think that I am to blame. Is 0 a number, or the lack thereof? I fall into slumber when push comes to shove. Is the number 1 self-describing? Isn't it fun, self-prescribing? 0 = 1 = 2 = 3. Makes sense to me. Thank you.
The number 0 has been invented only twice in the world. Once in India and once in the Yucatan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know the India.
Yeah.
I know about the Yucatan. That's awesome.
You're number 3 as far as I'm concerned.
All right. That one's me.
So is this Kim or Ken?
It's Kian Lock.
Ken. Okay.
Yeah, and so I've got a few for you today, and I'm going to do something I don't usually do and read something that I didn't write as well. But I think you're going to really, well, we'll see how you feel about it. So, first, structural epiphanies, knees off to drip to these. I mean, myth, please. Sisyphus wrote symphonies on the woes of knees less believable. The hills we've been dreaming of conquering ain't so unreasonable as to think that they should be unreachable. And on feet in soil, sweat and toil, we by the seas beseechable, crumpled by the tins, foiled. That one's from a couple of weeks ago. This next one's called It Was Written in the Stars. Lexical space is a place where words lace pages with infinite patience and variety. Sly Borges, in your library, they ply and tease. The wise and least both feast, fly, and flee in two curled dimensions. Weave, breathed into life, authored and liberated, free to deliver elation. Our creations, they are real and really recreations. Vying for the patience, stricken ill by this reality, and patient with the attention to span our bridges with the totality of their imaginations. To hone ourselves on these inked etches and edges, mind sharp enough to cut through the cedar, to slice through deceit, knowing that in receipt they will reap what nourishment has been sown. Born by the hollow point needle, the cradle and creed that graces and traces the outlines of our aspirations. The words, worth remembering, embering, won't lie there. Lines crackling and cackling, slip free of her shackles then. Goodbye, mortality. Just north in eternity. Spurning, burning, seething, and churning, earning their place, members of a legion, an allegiance of distinctive pieces, a lineage as old as the learned with no pages, whose voice echoes still from our phonograph quills down the ages. Ink wells from their urns of authority, speaks for itself, brittlin pages, for the ears and the eons, tutoring peons to poets, the learnt from ignorance, Homer growing, sowing truth in loose threading, embedding meaningful meanderings in a bedding of soft syntax, relaxed, stripped of unnecessary strictures, crawling but sure, the curse and the cure, they are both words. And we heard them, their shepherds, gazing up, babbling, leaning towards heaven. Thank you. And then I've got two really short ones for you, and these ones are kind of special, and we'll talk about why really quick afterwards. So the first one's...
just read the poems.
All right. Whispers of Eternity. In twilight's grace, we find our place. In twilight's race, refined our pace. Incline type race, wind hides our face. In time, light's trace, rewind, embrace. In quiet space, we find our chase. Invite, taste, waste, remind, encase, inquire, haste, paste, rebind, displace. In life embraced, we find our space. And then, Wanderings of a Cosmic Mind. In dreams we wander, stars align, intense bewilder, scars align, end streams rebuild or start to pine. In dense be wilder, sparse and fine, in's gleams we ponder, bars incline. It dims, re-wonder, spars entwine, intrigues bewilder, stars combine. In dreams we ponder, shards define.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Those last two were written by an AI poet rather than me.
Okay, Alan Harris.
This was written 3 years ago, early in the pandemic. Be zen, calm, tranquil, serene. Take it in stride. Don't take it personally. Remember, you're not the only one it's happening to. We are all in this together. Some have it worse, some have it better. But hey, pretty soon, we are all going to be out of toilet paper. And if you're poor, like me, you'll get by. You won't have a problem wiping your bum with drapery or construction paper or aluminum foil or the front page of the Chronicle or whatever you can find. It's the rich people that I'm worried about. They're not used to going without their quilted, lotioned, perfumed, golden embossed 4-ply imported from Germany. Whatever will they do when they have to start improvising like the rest of us? It's already very disconcerting to see my favorite cable news hosts on TV looking increasingly more disheveled with each passing day because they have to do their own hair and makeup. It's a dark time for the human race, and we need to make sure that our rich people aren't being neglected, that they're being taken care of. This going without will be especially hard on them because they're not used to it like the rest of us. That's one of the advantages of being poor, the only one, really. And the rich, the poor rich, could end up like those people in that film by Buñuel who go to a dinner party only to find that when they try to leave at the end of the evening, they can't. For some reason, they are unable to leave this house where the dinner party has taken place, and they end up being stuck in this house for weeks, their resources depleting rapidly, their clothes becoming increasingly more soiled, their nerves fraying, their defenses toppling. And hey, aren't you impressed with my reference to Buñuel? Doesn't it speak to my intelligence and discerning taste and willingness to challenge myself? No Ghostbusters reboot for this guy. Only art films on my watch list. My bank account may be in a state of bleak and dismal emptiness, but my sensibilities are refined. I can survive on pennies a day. I can make a crust of bread last for 6 months. Just throw me the occasional Buñuel or Godard or Kurosawa, and I'll be fine. I'm that rare combination of survivalist and art snob. It's one of my superpowers, my only one, really. And by the way, in case you're wondering, Buñuel's first name was Luis. Thank you. Nancy Pelosi's testicles. I can talk about Nancy Pelosi's testicles as much as I want to because I live in a country whose constitution grants me the freedom to talk openly about Nancy Pelosi's testicles, figurative as those testicles may be, since Nancy Pelosi is a girl and girls don't have testicles. But figuratively speaking, Nancy Pelosi has bigger testicles than any man in Washington, D.C. Those testicles on full display while the Capitol was being attacked by followers of presidential tourist Donald Trump. And as Proud Boys and Oath Keepers were brutalizing outnumbered cops and defecating on the floor of the Senate, and one not-so-bright faux patriot was incriminating himself in a federal crime by taking a selfie while sitting in Nancy Pelosi's office with his feet up on her desk, a big smirk on his face that I'm sure disappeared as soon as he heard the loud clang of the jail cell door closing behind him, Nancy Pelosi sat cool as ice, making phone call after phone call, trying to get someone to send over the National Guard, while the voices of Senators Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz grew increasingly more strident as the siege intensified, despite the fact that they have actual testicles. And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer crossed the room to ask Nancy Pelosi if he could borrow one of her testicles, as his were sadly lacking. And, as if further proof was needed that Nancy Pelosi was the proud owner of a set of figurative testicles, the size of which are equal to the vastness of the universe, she could be overheard threatening to punch the useless President of the United States in his fucking nose and not care if it meant that she would go to jail, where she would undoubtedly encounter hardened criminals who would nevertheless cower before her by virtue of those testicles that, thank goodness, are figurative, because if they were real, it would be very difficult, even painful, for her to walk due to their gargantuan dimensions. And I don't know if Nancy Pelosi would have a problem with me talking about her massive figurative testicles. I can't imagine why she would. I know that I would take it as a compliment. But even if she did, I'm sure she would fight to the death for my right to talk about them. Because this is America, the greatest country in the world, where an 81-year-old grandmother can possess, and I can talk all I want to about, Nancy Pelosi's testicles. Thank you.
What about your testicles?
That's next month. Next month, sir.
You don't want to talk about my testicles.
Get Rishi.
Hey, I'm going to read 3 short things. I think you're a very sensitive person, but you don't know it yet. You hide behind your benedictions, roses, sugar, harmony. You're sweet to the touch, like a soft, fuzzy fleece jumper. Like all fleece, though, you get prickly when it rains. You hide thorns in your roots, unseen at the surface, unwanted by you. They don't fit your image of benevolence. Inconvenient, they don't serve your cherubic facade. They make you human. I want to love your thorns, if only you'd let me. The only you I wish to love is the whole you, the harmony and the dissonance, the sweet, the sour, the upbeat, the dour, the you that comes out when it rains, the you that pains. Fuck the facade, I want the you that remains. But it's not about what I want. You have to love all of you first. I don't wait anymore. I have my own garden, thorns and pilled jumpers to tend to. Loving myself means I can be content letting you be. Thanks. These last 2 I wrote when I woke up because they're about dreams I had. The spirits of creation visited me in a dream, smiling, laughing. They assumed the faces of a dear friend and a staunch rival. 2 bodies that never failed to draw me from my reverie, and naturally towards a frenzy of pregnant exuberance and release. We danced in the great hall of a wistful temple. The stone columns ached with longing, and dust unsettled from the stampede. Our limbs erect, we cartwheeled and cajoled, our voices shining as we screeched and screamed into the black of the forest. Performing our ritual, we high priests of our patron, attracted our congregation, who circled our offering of chaos, chemistry, and cunning. We sprouted fangs, claws, antlers, bellies, fur. Our snouts grew long and our tails grew thin. Our pack unified, yet not 2 of us the same. The trees shook, yet held us in the container of our sacrifice. I was me and not me, and soon overwhelmed I retired, washing my face in the basin and descending towards the labyrinth for a season of contemplation. This prayer was complete, but we focalizers had no energy to drink from the well we had summoned. Instead, I wandered the winding paths, preserving energy, building strength, becoming again myself. My body returns to the shape of a boy, tall yet pudgy, with slouched shoulders. Sand in my eyes, I let my vision rest and sit down, becoming once again ready for friends, rivals, or the spirits themselves to coax me out of my slumber, becoming ready for another blood moon, another culmination of creative forces to inspire my surrender and annihilation. This one's about my family. Ghosts of the past haunt me in my sleep. I'm transported to my childhood home, the perch from which I witnessed endless horrors. A resounding slap follows echoes of screams through the room. I rush to her aid, but she wants no protection. She has a fighter's spirit and stance, fists at the ready. She spits venom and hatred, her mouth drooling and her eyes piercing. He is reduced to a sobbing heap. He asks, "What have I become?" He allows himself to be typecast and once again raises his hand to strike, and showing his strength, he reveals weakness. I'm in between them, pushing from both ends. I'm hoarse from my own screaming, but words have no power here. This is a land of thudded bodies and broken furniture. The dream swirls and shifts. Before I get to fix anything, I stumble forward into a new conflict. We've played this one out before. His annoyance at me and mine at his. We don't waste our bodies in this war, too sophisticated for that. Instead, we throw emotions at one another like stingingly cold snowballs. I duck and his jab hits squarely in the face. I hold back tears and retort with the purest, coldest hatred I can muster. It's not what we grew up with, but it's the same tradition. Hatred wells up in me, not towards the other, but towards the self. I breathe. I don't hate my enemy. I hate war. I soften. I allow myself to be hit. I crumble. I show my heart, my humanity. I ask forgiveness. I ask for accountability. I serve tea. I dance. I surrender. I wake up.
Thank you, Rishi and Bianca.
Hi, everyone. This is my first open mic, so thanks for letting me do this. You used to play jazz in your apartment in the mornings. Your grandma used to play jazz in her house, you said. The grandma that was your grandma, not your sister's grandma. Lillian or Vi or something like that. Her specific name blending into other English names of the time that may have been one of your grandmas or may have been the previous person's grandmas. But to some extent, maybe that doesn't matter anyway because they were gone long before our time together. The jazz brought a calm, polished energy to your apartment, and I remember both loving it and wondering if it was real. It was one of the many things about you that seemed cool and cultured, while simultaneously being who you actually are. Sometimes I wonder how many of those cool things got me to pay attention, how they were simultaneously cool and mundane, like the fact that your standard smoke break walk took you through the canal to the river. I was adamant that I hated the habit of smoking before you, that anyone who did it was a selfish fool. At the concert last night, I had a similar feeling, with the smoke and fog in the stage diffusing the blue and red lights, making it feel like the suspended reality. She's Bengali and British and Irish, and when she sang about London, I realized I hadn't thought about London like that in a while, like it was a home that I'm missing. I lost my wanderlust for a bit, and misattributed that to finally feeling at home or finding the person. You love this artist too, because we showed you her that bleak spring when we all became friends and giggled in the 30-degree weather, and you and I joked about how she might be what our kids would look like one day. A folly for sure. She's taller than both of us and has far better style. So I stood there in the fog, surrounded by couples and people who felt definitively to be in their early 20s, in a little suspended smoky reality, thinking about London and grandparents and alternate universes, wondering which one was the real one. For a second, my brain convinced myself that, yeah, our time was the real time, and that more recent misadventures were merely happy and unhappy accidents, that we couldn't figure it out because of timing and location, as though either of those are concepts that we even believe in. That yes, of course, I was always going to live in London and see myself in Bengali British people with a deep sense of confidence, an aura of grace, a damn good sense of rhythm, and a sharp wit. That those are the people I'm descended from. But then the song ended and I giggled at how willing my brain is to twist reality into little bows to try and create meaning. I can't remember what it felt like anymore even to believe in that time. It's easy to convince myself that actually I never did believe. That, like the jazz in your apartment, we were just playing along to not have to observe the silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Zane.
Hello, so I'm going to read a parable. It's called The Parable of the Village Mulch. What is it that makes a village a village? Is it the people, the buildings, the way the people interact with their children, their parents, their neighbors? Or is it their collective action, that besides their differences in wants and needs, they collectively decide to settle together in one place? Be it what it may, once upon a time there was such a village. The people in it wined and dined merrily, for their village home was surrounded by plenty. Vast pastures full of grazing bison, deer, and plentiful grain rest to one side, while on the other they kept a tall, dense, hardy forest, full of pine trees for lumber, and others bearing fresh fruit and nuts. When it came time to build their homes, they built fortuitously and wastelessly, taking care to use every bit of the tree for lumber, the needles for roofing, the sap for glue, even the cones as decor. What little they did waste they left beside their dwellings as mulch, hopeful it would become fertile once more and keep their giving earth juvenile. Nonetheless, as the years bore on, the merry villagers had children. and so the village grew. To house the new children, they continued their tradition, using what they could and leaving what little waste they had as mulch behind. But over time, the mulch grew. It was at a small evening gathering of the elders that the concerns were first raised. A man, nary a year over 50, raised a hypothetical. There had been a small structural issue, you see, with one of his grandchildren's dwellings. Everyone was fine, but it was one of the larger structures the town had built, and a piece of lumber in the wall had come unstuck, leaving the children shivering cold in the night, until one of the builders could come make some repairs. The wise old man reckoned, maybe it's not a coincidence that it was the largest structure they'd built so far. What if one day we built a structure so large that we all lived in it? And what if that structure, large as it would need to be, were also more likely to suffer issues? Wouldn't its collapse mean the demise of their village? Surely all would immediately perish. The man hadn't slept. He cherished his grandchildren so dearly, and he couldn't be sure when such a thing were to happen. But surely it were to happen at some point. And be it his grandchildren, or theirs, someone would need to bear the responsibility. The elders conferred. It was true. Such a structure could be built, and if it were to fall, it would be truly catastrophic. They agreed to reconvene on this issue at the end of the gathering, for it was far beyond the scope of what they'd yet discussed. For the next topic, again appeared a usually joyous elder, riddled by dread and sleeplessness. He too had witnessed something grave, which concerned him for the future. A few nights ago, during a lightning storm, the lightning struck the nearby forest, and while he and his were fine, the lightning struck a tree. The elders were no strangers to wildfires, but the embers traveled far in the wind, and one had landed in the mulch pile near his godson's home on the edge of the village. That ember may not have caught the cabin on fire, that's for sure, but the mulch quickly lit stupendously. It burned quickly, enough that it caught their dog's cabin on fire, and the dog ran for its life, never to be seen since. The elder reckoned, as they've built their homes up over the years, so had the mulch built up. In some parts of the village, the mulch piles were dozens of feet tall, and on windy days it swept all over town. What were they to do if one of the larger mulch piles caught fire? It was only a matter of time. Already 2 others conferred their houses had been singed by the mulch once before. They sought to move inwards, but were they all susceptible eventually? Murmurs grew amongst the crowd into a frenzy, until the elder slammed his foot onto the hard earth. He beseeched them all to be calm. They have dealt with fires before, and they will be able to deal with more. Buildings collapsing, however, and especially one they all lived in, that's not something they'd ever conceived of. It would be truly catastrophic. The townsfolk need not worry now, but in generations to come this would become grave. What were they to do? To much the mulch miser's dismay, plans were quickly set afoot to begin building more tall structures. The thinking went, if they were to learn how to avoid future catastrophe, they would need some experience.
Okay, Jeff Kalis.
What makes a village a village? What makes a city a village? Village people and good folks like Jerry and Michael and Eric. Let's hear it for them. Keeping the legacy of poetry and the legacy of music going in this wonderful bookstore, generation after generation. I think, it's multiple generations by now. Decade after decade, it's marvelous. Talking about generations, I was lucky enough yesterday evening, to be part of a tribute to a wonderful poet who dates back to the Beats in North Beach. Some of you, I think, know about her, Ruth Weiss. This is Ruth. There are 2 good documentaries about her. One of them was shown last night at the luggage store, where I got to read some poetry. That's what this folder was assembled for. And let me, before I begin, also put this up here. Probably not going to be able to see it too well, but I want to begin by reading a poem that I wrote while listening to Ruth. While she was still with us, she lasted until the age of 92. That's something for all you poets to look forward to. And this poem is called Nothing But the Ruth, from a performance she did with jazz behind her, because she was a poet who loves music, that I'm sure many of you do, at the Monroe on Broadway in North Beach, where she was a part of the Beats decades earlier. Eyes gazing forever fixed and silent above the luscious movement of jazz, let us speak you beyond the silence of a vertical moment, our arpeggiated warm curve of a caress beyond the coffin, and will applaud each stretch along your jointed journey to joy. I'll blow your ascents, I'll bow your intestinal proximity to pleasure, I'll pat the warm cheeks beside your smile. Then we'll smoke on into where the wind will wind us and sing a song along North Beach's Broadway. I got paved here for you to walk on towards what you wanted. And as you walked, I stood aside above my pavement and reflected to you all you might be, shone back to you and out to me. I anchored a pole for you to rest upon before crossing. Maybe wait with it a while. Let your pretty thinking tickle all over your lovely life, then touch the rest of us. Thank you. The next is an ekphrastic poem. Some of you, what? No? You might or might not know that means a poem prompted by something visual. Often a painting, could be a movie. In this case, it is a painting, this one that you might see a little bit of. It's called Christina's World. It was painted by Andrew Wyeth in the state of Maine, the state that I came from. That's my home state. So this is my love of this painting. It's called Down a Piece. She lies downhill from the clapboard house in the barn, far from her bed, and she rises to rest, down left on Wyeth's canvas. There she stretches along all our memories where she may stay, if only she can, long past the sea-cooled day's dusk outside the town of Thomaston, and long after she's gone to ground in the town cemetery, and the artist has been laid beneath a worded stone way down along the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. For now, with us, she feels with the brief, short life of a Maine meadow in all its amber multitudes. Her eyes away from ours, watching the waves of simple splendor, no place for longing there. It's we who want her wanting. Thank you. And lastly, but hopefully not leastly, a poem inspired in the spirit of Ruth by music, in this case by a piece by Ornette Coleman called All My Life. Ornette Coleman did not write many songs. He wrote a couple which ended up on the album Science Fiction that I recommend to all of you. It is splendid. So this is my thanks to Ornette and to this song all my life. I'm here again to hear my fresh first force of sound made out from mother, out from womb to warm up, out where I'd be heard. And here is what I do with life, what I do with breath, lifted by the loving in my larynx, launching towards your listen. I've waited all my life for you, and now you're here. Hearing, sharing what is wanted, what remembered, what is hoped for, what words reach towards an embrace. You never knew me, though. I knew you long ago. Your name has been my life always, and now I'm yours. Your otherness, your meanness meeting mine, from longing to belonging, a harmony of having each other mother's all, a womb we widen, lullabying all the living, birthing us towards timeliness. My heart and I agreed to wait for you, I'm glad. Show me how you hold me while you sing yourself. Send me something that I've never heard, something that I can make mine, holding something more than mine. Time never will exist for me or you again. Thank you all for listening.
Okay, all right. Okay, Troy Cantrell.
The Secrets of Language. Friday morning passes quickly with a superficial misunderstanding with my wife and an artificial understanding with my ex-wife. Those scenes of drama are followed shortly thereafter by scenes of comedy, namely at a city college class full of gringos of all races, foolishly feeling, listening, and absorbing the internal logic of Spanish language, but by translating English word for word. But literal translations make for literal nonsense, of course. For example, the memorable ad campaign line, "Got milk?" translated literally is "Tiene leche?" which in Spanish is an idiom that means, "Are you lactating?" I don't think the American dairy industry would embrace such a slogan, but I certainly would. To speak a language, you have to think in that language, to dream in that language, to feel in that language. In some ways, the debate over whether language describes or constitute reality really seems contrived and overwrought. For most people, things are just the way they are. And all that fuss over language is an argument for pseudo-intellectual wonks and unemployed philosophers with too much time on their hands. Still, all that hang-wranging and hair-splitting aside, the language we use unquestionably both reveals and affects our understanding and response to reality. No language, no matter how precise or how sublime, can capture all of reality. English, with its bulging vocabulary, is well suited for detailed clinical descriptions, but it often struggles with some of life's more colorful, if prosaic, occurrences. For example, the particular way your hair looks after you've had sex. That may be one of the truly most universal phenomenons. English speakers around the world undoubtedly have experienced such hair, but they are unlikely to be able to easily articulate it. But the French, who else, have a specific word just for the appearance of post-coital hair. In Japan, they know to beware of a bukashan. For the rest of us, no such word for a woman who is good-looking from behind but unattractive from the front exists. Think about that. A woman Japanese can describe in one word takes an 8-word definition in English. By that time, it's too late. Maybe that's why she ended up with post-coital hair. Meanwhile, Spanish, with its sly idioms and smaller, more fluid vocabulary, often is superior to English in its ability to romantically capture more of life's emotional texture, just as a romance language should. While both languages are amphibious, Germanic languages thrive in the mind, but Romance languages thrive in the heart. It is a holistic conversion rather than a literal translation that occurs when working between two languages. Take, for example, these standard starter Spanish sentences. Yo tengo 50 años. Yo soy de San Diego. Estoy feliz hoy. I'm 50 years old. I'm from San Diego. I'm happy today. Rendered in English, these sentences rely more on Hamlet do than on the verb to be. I am 50. I am from San Diego. Today I am happy. To an English speaker, no other verb could be more natural, more fundamental. After all, even Popeye knows I am what I am. But while in English, all the sentences crutch on a single verb, Spanish uses a different verb in each case, hinting at a differentiated nuance of meaning that, without an overlong and awkward explanation, is absent entirely in English. To the Spanish speaker, the 50 years I have, yo tengo, but they are not the definition of who I am, as opposed to my origins from San Diego, soy de, which is indeed one of my inalterable characteristics permanent within me, no matter how far away from home I roam. And my emotional state of being just today, estoy feliz, is happy, while not necessarily discounting the possibility that generally I might be a completely miserable person. All of these distinctions are lost in translation, even in those most basic sentences. So, in Friday's Spanish class, a palpable strain emerges as the American students attempt to shoehorn first world realities into Spanish with ridiculous results. ¿Te gusta café? Do you like coffee? Was the question. But the student was not contented to say, sí, me gusta café. Instead, he responded, me gusta café con mitad y mitad, bringing a raised eyebrow of confusion from Spanish native speakers. Mitad y mitad is a meaningless literal translation of half and half. Another student floundered trying to Google, paste, and translate, but literally impossible to say, butterscotch. Few seem to realize that speaking another language means to speak another language, not to translate from one language to another in an obsequious lockstep with each word's denotation. Turn the page. After all, the purpose of speaking is to communicate meaning, including connotation and original intent. Although it's true that in any language, 80% of what's communicated is unspoken anyway, it's still nice to have just the right word. All right. And now for something completely different. Appropriate for a bookstore. Better than nothing. Hemingway's Men in a Clean, Well-Lighted Place. When in time we appear to ourselves to be doing nothing, going nowhere, seeing nobody, and on in the Hemingway sense, a clean, well-lighted place is all that remains in life. In Hemingway's famous short story, a clean, well-lighted place is all that the old man has to look forward to. As readers, we appreciate that the three characters in the story, the three men, represent the three stages of a man's life: youth, middle, and old age. The clean, well-lighted cafe and the liquor keep the old man alive, but just barely. For anyone who lives long enough into old age, a clean, well-lighted place gradually becomes more and more important until at last it is the only thing. It means so much, yet really it's so little, almost nothing, nada y pues nada. Existentialism with suicidal tendencies sets the tone and mood of the story. Life is long, and the agony of its length is known only to those who've lived it long enough. Increasingly, life becomes an exercise in extended, sorrowful duration, and many men simply don't have the strength to finish. The monotony of it all, the unbroken dreariness of another, yet another, yet another, and still another day, the unending hours, the shrinking mortality, the dreaded cycle of waking, sleeping, dreaming, always something, but always nada y pues nada. Thoreau described our coping mechanism as quiet desperation, but for Hemingway's Men, it's something more like quiet resignation. The clawing struggle against the inevitable implied by the word desperation is absent here. For Hemingway's men, life is much more passive. They have accepted that there's little in life that can get us all out of neutral. Nada y pues nada. We're all passengers on a plane with an empty cockpit set upon automatic pilot. Sooner or later, the plane runs out of fuel. No way around it. Time feels like a foe, and a clever one at that. We are ignorant of it in our youth. We can't get enough of it in our middle years, and we can't get the hell away from it as we age. In the end, we're all dying for it. As the opportunities to develop, to learn, to achieve, to become, one by one, dozen by dozen, are missed, unknown, misspent, underdeveloped, dreamed, pursued, captured, accomplished, lived up, used up, regretted, recycled, forgotten, over, done, and out. What then? And indeed, what now? Nada y pues nada. T.S. Eliot remarked that the time-ridden faces of the modern world are distractions from distractions by distractions. But Hemingway reminds us all that in the end we must stoically accept that the clean, well-lighted place may be all there is to life, because we cannot know it all if there's even that much to death. That's it.
Okie dokie. Okay, now we have Kevin. Kevin, please. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I was gonna say, is that up for grabs?
Yeah, you want it?
That's okay. He brought a Negra Modelo. It's a great beer. What's up? I'm Kevin. I'm kind of here both out of, the sense of community and poetry, and out of a really deep sense of guilt. Because I was supposed to go to Ashia's reading on Saturday, and I wasn't able to make it because of unforeseen circumstances. So I'm gonna read 2 short poems, and these were poems that I would have read to share with my friend Ashia as they celebrate their really incredible book, which y'all should for sure get. I was like, we're gonna make it sell out. All right, the first poem is a it's a climate change haiku.
Everybody read climate change poems at my.
For real? Ah! I love it. Of course they would. Of course they would. All right, it's a climate change haiku. The snow melt settles. No human left. Skulls will be sowed wild with daisies. Yeah. Shout out climate change. Shout out haikus. All right. I'm going to read this poem. Everybody that isn't Ashia, you're welcome. Because I feel like Ashia, I wouldn't read this poem normally at an open mic like this. But I'm going to just jump into this. This is a new poem that I'm workshopping. Hey. Yeah. I think I'm going to sit. Y'all can still hear me? All right. Spin around blindfolded with your big stick and smack me. Smack me hard. As the audience sings in your name, make me twirl, dip, swing. Let the sound of your stroke hitting my body guide you to the hole. I am filled with sweet syrup for you, but you're running out of time. Dame, dame, dame. Smack me hard, harder! Let me shower you with my goodies. Don't be afraid. You can't hurt me. This is my purpose. Your time is almost up. Are you gonna let the person next in line come and relish your reward? That's my poem from the perspective of a masochistic piñata. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and Walker Brent.
All right, so let's see. Reflections, actually, the superheroes. And, I want to, perhaps the villains too, when they fall, when they dissolve, their makeup, just runs, the streets run wet with rain and their cosmetics, But I'm, it seems there was one villain that was given a gift by God. The God said, you will be a villain because it is somehow your fate. But I will give you this. I will make it so that the cosmetics that you will wear to frighten people will, when you finally do melt, they will flow off of your face and they themselves will become agents of purification. The cosmetic as it melts, as the villain dissolves, shall become the agent of purification as particles in the flowing water. So that was in answer to, like, at the end of the poem, there was the mist, the droplets of rain in clouds. So it's like, oh, yes, and then as to the answer, what makes the village? It is that, this is not absolute, but it's true, I think. Water under the earth. And San Francisco has abundant groundwater, for various reasons, and so the water above and the water below, right, as above, so below. Anyway, and then I'll just read one poem if it's all right. I don't want to belabor the attention, and I even used my bookmark to find it here. Okay, and so it's called The October Front. So it could be about something coming from the west of coolness, it could be about that. It could be about the fog, perhaps. But it goes, cabinets of sequoia where wizened apples are locked up, partridge cooked by flint and steel, same way brought down, the ink script in Mayan muscles pulling hamstrings of curtained illusion down, below grassroots level, spellbinding is the eye of the water moccasin upon the apple of Pike's Peak's eye, a snowstorm of pelicans upon a plangent ridge, without the wits to endure eternity, yet there they are, an ancient wish fulfilled, like banked infinity, like a hailed oasis, like a pasture of gazelles, like a fish fin fry, the best taste in shoes of anyone in school, from platform soles to hush puppies. Blink and you're almost there, at the mercy of all you endure. In the name of seriousness, the isthmus of Martin Luther King and Sam Phillips, the jumper cables, the estrogen so amniotic, the Jim Bowie knife, the grizzly bear, the Sasquatch, the albatross, the man who threw alligators from his mouth from Indianapolis to Amarillo, embryogenesis, peacock claw throne circus in the sand, wasted avenues of outrageous advantage, Aldous Huxley and D.H. Lawrence and Krishnamurti meet in the altogether nowhere, now here, of suchness, and say, how glad to meet ya. Now get lost, be born in whatever year you wish, for the ocean is time and you are a fish. So swim in the groundwater, the water above and the water below, All right.
Okay, and Miss Love. We have a poet.
Good evening, everyone. This will be my first open mic as well. I took Professor Trong's class as well, so this first one is one that was written through him in his class. We can't hear you well. Sorry. This is, oh, cool. Is that better? Awesome. So this first one is called 22. It's a 2-part poem. Bismillah. 22. I always dreaded reaching the age of my abuser. 4 years older, 4 years ahead in manipulation, I dreaded that age. I was afraid that it would be gifted to me along with some kind of unwanted, awakened awareness of what he did to me. That it would place me in his shoes, in his stage of life, the one that is freeze-framed and etched into my mind, the only version of him that exists to me. 22. But the thing is, 4 years later, and I have reached this dreaded 22, I've even come 2 years beyond this 22,
And it did come wrapped in awakened awareness, except it came with wisdom. It came with strength, it came with fire, it came with drive and an unimaginable amount of beauty. I am owning 22. I own 22. How can he take an age from me, a stage of life from me? He did it once. I won't allow it to be twice. I have taken them both back. The twos, the doubles and troubles of 22. The addition of 2 and 2 that makes 4, 4 long years later, a product of this age, 2 and 2. They are mine. You live in duality with you and her, but she is you and you are her. I have taken back what he tried to take from me. With every violent thrust, with your cock ripping apart my inner sacreds, like you held a 22 to my head. Pieces of me were taken, and I never thought I'd get them back until I reached this dreaded 22. And upon arrival, I realized he gave me more than he ever took. We are both entangled in products of 22. At 22, I could reach you, you could reach me. Still at 22, I can reach you in your cell, through my cell. My cell connects us, not in the way it did before at 22, but I can no longer feel you, laugh with you, see you, still at 22. I find that it hurts me more to hear your voice forcing through the tiny speakers of my cell after bouncing and echoing between the walls of your cell. My cell connects me to anywhere in the world with just a few taps. Oddly enough, this cell does not connect me to you. It is a reminder of being robbed of you. I find that it hurts me more to hear your voice echoing on the walls of your cell, passing its way through my cell. As much as the cell can do for me, it is not enough. I don't think it ever will be. Oddly enough, it never connects me to you. It is a reminder of being robbed of you. I've lost what I've always known as you. I am grateful to get to hear your voice still, but I long for more, for you, for after we leave 22. It all changed at 22, and as much as my cell does do for me, it is not enough. It never will be. When I talk to you through my cell, it reminds me of what little cell yours can do for you, allows of you. I am grateful to get to hear your voice still, but I still long for more for you, past 22. My cell grants connection, yours shuts you out, shuts you in. I feel I have survived 22 when you may not have. When I talk to you through my cell, it again reminds me of what little your cell can do for you. I can still reach you in your cell through my cell forever after 22. I'll have to make it enough. I want to end things on a more positive note. I wrote this one last month. It's called Butterflies. I felt that feeling when I looked into your eyes. My stomach churned and my heart fluttered. I felt alive. You told me I never told you that once you knew. Every time I saw you, the flutters grew. I've grown a lot since then, and now I know those butterflies, the ones that told me you and I were safe, were really warning signs of uncertainty, fragility, and much more. Don't get me wrong, I still loved you. I still love you, but love, I've realized, being in love should be home, should feel warm and stable. It should feel certain like Sunday mornings with fried bacon and freshly brewed tea. I no longer want those crashing waves, those flutters of overwhelm that moved me away from me. I don't want my heart skipping any more beats in the name of love. I want to beat in harmony with yours. I want to feel safe being two separate, but one together all at the same time. The only butterflies that tug at my heart in regards to love are the ones that maybe you and I can see flutter by on our warm Sunday mornings drinking tea. I long for calm. I long for ease, breath with you. I desire support and certainty. That is love redefined. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I guess that's our, that's the second half. And, we'll be having more fun next month, so pay attention to the schedule. And, still books there. The tip jar is still open. Oh, yeah.